Hey guys, it's Shelby and I am thinking about changing my intro. Some people literally hate the intro. Some people say it just wouldn't feel right without it. I'd love to know in the comments which way you feel. If I could just start saying, hey guys, it's Shelby, leaving off the Shelbizleee part, or if I should just come up with a whole new one, or if I should keep it. I don't know what to do. So let me know what you think. But today I'm specifically making this video because one of you requested it. I do read all of my comments. I don't know if that's a common thing for most YouTubers, but I read them all, and chances are if you request a video, I'll make it for you. This one is going to be about some non-zero waste things I do, because I definitely know that my online presence, like my YouTube and my Instagram, makes it seem like I'm the perfect zero waster, or I have all the answers to everything. And I definitely I flat out don't. I've said many times and try to communicate it to you as much as I can that I don't really believe in the definition of zero waste as an individual. I just don't believe it to be true. And without saying that other people are lying, I just don't think a lot of other people are living the perfect life that they make it seem like they do on social media. Specifically, with one really quick off the bat example, is that I go out to eat with my friends and my family, not at vegan places, not at eco-friendly places, just regular old places where everybody can find something that they like. And probably, I'm not kidding you, about half the time that I ask for no straw in my drinks, they come with straws anyway, okay? And so the people who say that they have this jar of their trash for the last decade or so, and they're perfect and they do that, you know, that sort of thing, it's not possible, not for me anyway. So without further ado, I wanted to tell you some ways I'm not zero waste to hopefully make you feel better about any sort of mistakes you make. And I would love to hear about ways that you're not zero waste. They're really not even your fault, despite how hard you try. Some of them I do willingly, some of them I don't. So we'll get into the ways that I'm not zero waste in just a second, but I did want to say thank you to our sponsor of today's video, which is Squarespace. If you guys don't know, you can build an awesome online platform with Squarespace, and with my link you get 10% off. We'll talk more about that later, but I did want you to know that every time I'm working with Squarespace, I am asking that you leave in the comments if you have a good idea for a website that could help the environment or has to do with sustainability, etc. And last time someone said they would love if there was a website created just for basically this, not that stuff. So if you've seen those books, they make them for like diet and financial stuff. It's buy this, not that. And they said they'd want to see one that's like that for zero waste swaps or like environmental things. So I made a mini list of some things you could do this instead of that, things that are sustainable for their not so sustainable alternatives, and I made just that one blog post. But if you want to create a website, you can do that with Squarespace, and I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments. So right off the bat, I will say that I don't believe individual zero wasteness, actually zero waste in any form, eco-friendly, whatever you want to call it, in any form, to be just about physical trash, solid waste. I think it's a very flawed way of looking at it, and it makes you completely just ignore and give permission basically to look away from other areas where there's a ton of waste. For my first example, it's going to be driving. I live in Texas, and for a long time I just thought that in general, Texas is not set up for public transit, which is largely very true. Especially in Austin, it definitely was not set up for public transit at all. Our freeways, our roads, even our sidewalks, like to the extent that they're maintained and not so maintained and how accessible they are, this state was set up for driving. There is a ton of sprawl in Texas. It's a huge issue. And so I drive. I drive quite a lot. And it's something that I feel really guilty about, to the point that I finally got a new car. Okay, we'll talk about that some other time, but I finally bought my dream car literally yesterday, as of when I'm recording this video. That's definitely one of the ways I am not the most eco-friendly person. I drive a lot of places, and I drive quite often. I will say that recently I've been experimenting with the public transit in San Antonio, as well as buses that go from like city to city. So from San Antonio to Dallas. My family doesn't live super close to Houston, but if I could get a bus from San Antonio to maybe the Woodlands area, that might be an alternative that I am definitely looking into, because for a long time I just thought it wasn't accessible, it wasn't possible, it was very time consuming. So I'm looking at alternatives to that, but I will say that's definitely one of the biggest ways I have a larger carbon footprint is that I drive. Similarly, another way that my lifestyle is not the most eco-friendly is travel. Now, I don't fly a lot, I wouldn't say, but I flew a couple flights earlier this year. So I went to Portland and then I drove up to Seattle and then I flew back from there. But that was the first time I had flown in over 3 years. So I don't know if you consider that a lot, but the fact that I am going to be going to LA in August is a little bit excessive for someone who probably is trying to live a lower emissions life. Now, I will say that I always buy offsets, so that's always supposed to offset the carbon that comes out while I'm traveling, like the carbon emissions emitted for me as I'm traveling, but it still doesn't feel great to be someone who takes a flight. So for my trip in August, I'm actually flying to LA and then finding other modes of transportation all the way up to Vancouver. So that should be really fun and really interesting. I'm very excited to see how that goes. But yeah, that's definitely not the most eco-friendly thing I do in my life. Flying occasionally. Something else I've become not so low-key obsessed over the last few months are houseplants. Now, the reason these aren't the most eco-friendly thing is because they all come in plastic nursery pots. For someone who owns over 100 houseplants at this point, it's definitely not the most eco-friendly hobby to have that much plastic coming into your life. It would be much worse if I didn't have a plan for like repurposing or reusing or giving them back to the nursery. So a lot of your nurseries will take your plastic nursery pots back and reuse them. So if you do get into plants like I recently have, just make sure that whenever you repot your plant, you're giving those plastic pots back to the nursery, not breaking them, not throwing them away, and checking with your local recyclers to see if they even are recyclable before you go throwing them in your recycling bin. But I think someone living a real zero waste and completely plastic-free lifestyle basically wouldn't be able to own any real houseplants or fake houseplants because those are plastic too. But I don't really know how you would get most plants without their plastic nursery pots. So recently that's probably been one of my biggest zero waste flops. Another way that I'm not completely zero waste and wasn't planning on saying until I realized I was standing in front of this, but I don't buy all of my foods in bulk. I don't have access to like the best bulk stores. I don't have access to certain things like bulk pastas, bulk liquids, like anything that's not just a dry good. I don't have access to it at all. So like dish soaps, shampoos, anything like that, I don't have refills for at all. So, I mean, that's just a quick little mention, but the thing I have written down in my notes to tell you how I'm not zero waste is actually with like vegan junk foods. I'm not sure why they get labeled this because honestly, I don't look at them as junk food. Vegan mock meats give you a great way to get a lot of protein and vitamins without all of the carbs. There's really not another efficient way of getting a lot of protein and a lot of nutrients on a vegan diet without vegan meat substitutes. Not to mention, I just think they're good and they're satiating. So I still buy vegan junk foods or vegan meat substitutes, whatever you want to call it. And I always say that I think that is more important than living plastic free, at least in that area, because you're supporting a business that overall impacts the environment so much more than your individual contribution to that plastic by creating more plant-based foods, by making them more available, by making more people aware of them. Obviously, well, maybe not so obviously, I don't know if everybody knows, but one of the biggest causes of climate change comes from animal agriculture, farming animals for food. So if we can create more of a demand for the plant-based alternatives and wean more and more people off of meat, or at least less meat and more plant-based, that has an overall positive impact. I say it all the time, so I'll say it here again. I don't apologize for my vegan junk foods or my meat substitutes because I think they're doing more good for the earth than they are bad. Another place where I have plastic waste that I definitely can't avoid comes from thrift shopping tags. How does anybody with a trash jar buy clothing without plastic waste? The little plastic pieces and the tags that they come with, or if it's a thrift store that has stickers. I mean, really, where are they putting all of their thrift shopping tags? Or, you know what, come to think of it, where do they put all of their receipts from anything they buy? Like groceries and literally anything. Where do people with trash jars do with receipts? I guess that's another way I'm not zero waste, because I get receipts and I'm not really sure how you would avoid those. One of the ways I've been very open about not being zero waste is with my deodorant. I've not found a deodorant that doesn't have plastic on it that I think works well for me yet, which is slightly unfortunate, and I don't know if I'm ever going to find one, but this little plastic guy is what I use right now. It's by a brand called Native. They actually sell in Target now, which is pretty stinking cool, but I do have a discount code with them. I think it's 10% off. off if you want to try them out, if you've had just as much trouble finding a zero waste deodorant as I have. But I don't think going around and smelling for everyone to enjoy my stinkiness is a great thing to do, just to avoid a little bit more plastic. So yes, that is a way that I am not perfectly zero waste. My deodorant still comes in plastic. So those are all the main ways I could think of that I am consistently not zero waste, and ways that I consume plastic on a semi-regular basis. The thing about zero waste is I don't think any of us can be perfect, and I think that is okay to accept, especially so we can get more people coming into this movement and trying to reduce their waste dramatically. Our environment obviously needs it, and it doesn't help to scare anyone away by making them think that the only way that they can be zero waste is giving up their deodorant that's the only one that works for them, that comes in plastic, and you have to be stinky to be zero waste. I don't think that's a great marketing tactic for the movement. I hope you enjoyed hearing some ways that I'm not zero waste. I'd love to hear from you in the comments some things that you haven't been able to find a plastic-free alternative for. And I'd also like to give a huge thank you to our sponsor today, which is Squarespace. And I always appreciate them sponsoring my videos without me having to change anything about the messaging of the video to sponsor me, aka not interfering with the content. So let me tell you a little bit about them. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform where you can build an online store or even a sustainability-based blog. For anybody who has an awesome idea about websites, like I mentioned earlier, they are an awesome online resource where you can also get 24/7 customer service. For anyone who's ever tried to build a website, you know how valuable that is. They also offer domains, and to get 10% off of your purchase of a website or a domain, you can head to squarespace.com/Shelbizleee for 10% off of your purchase.